Here we are for another episode of the Healer's Corner. And tonight we have a fun friend. Like I've been waiting, I'm like, ooh, we get to have Kathy. Like fangirling over Kathy, because Kathy, you've got connections to a really cool place here in Ohio.
Yes, I do. I
But
do.
why don't you tell our friends a little about yourself in this place and how you got into this field?
Okay, I'd be happy to. Well, for starts, my name is Kathy Feketik, and I am one of the co-founders for Tri-C Ghost Hunters. My husband and I both formed the team back in 2013. Prior to that, we used to be on another team. So, and what piqued our interest, what piqued mine, Greg, while we studied up on everything, but what piqued my interest was I grew up in a haunted house. So I always had activity going on. In addition to that, I was able to see the future, so to speak, through my dreams and things like that. So this has been part of my life ever since I can remember. So when my husband and I met, we were like, "Hey, we both like the paranormal. Let's go hunting." So that's what we did, and we actually began with our family and going to haunted hotels and things. So if you guys are interested, that's one way you can get started. But then we formed the team Tri-C Ghost Hunters and expanded from there uh, um, into what we our event thing, which is Black Shamrock Events. And the reason why we have Black Shamrock Events is because we are also the co-organizers, co-founders for the ParaPsycon. The ParaPsycon is a paranormal and psychic convention that is held at the Ohio State Reformatory. I am the paranormal program manager for the Ohio State Reformatory. And how that all began was back in 2004. My husband and I went there for our very first investigation, and we fell in love with the place. Had experiences the very first time we were there. And in 2013, we decided to start volunteering there. So we were volunteers. My husband became the lead paranormal investigator, working all of the private ghost hunts in 2017. And in 2022, when I was supposed to retire and never have to work again, uh, the paranormal program manager decided to leave a week before my retirement. And I was sitting there and I'm like, if I don't try to get this job, I'm going to kick myself for the rest of my life. I have to at least apply for it. So I did, and there I am. And you know what? It's probably one of the best decisions I've made. I absolutely love my job there. There's so many different avenues to it when you're working in the paranormal department. So many different programs you can start up, and even like classes and things like that. So it's been a good decision, and who wouldn't love working at the Ohio State Reformatory? It's an amazing place.
It's a really cool looking building. Like it is a statement as you're pulling in and just looking, at it. It's a really pretty building, and in a way, it's kind of like contradictory that it's a beautiful like stone building, but it held some pretty unpretty people who did pretty unpretty things.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. And what you're saying about the building is absolutely gorgeous. It looks like a huge castle. And the front of the building is actually the administration part of it. And the back of the building is the cells and everything. And they both have a completely different feel. Now, when that prison was built, it was built as a reformatory, and it actually was extremely successful as a reformatory at bringing in first time offenders and teaching them how to be productive in society, how to attain, a skill to be able to go out and work and things like that. And it was extremely successful. It wasn't until they started to bring in hardened criminals that it just kind of took a dive.
Mm. Now, you mentioned you grew up in a haunted house. Is that started your investigate or your interest into
Mhm.
investigating the paranormal?
Absolutely, it did. And the biggest reason being, I was always told it was my imagination, and I knew it wasn't my imagination.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until years later when I was older that finally my parents admitted, yeah, there was something going on in the house.
You
But
said so many times where the parents, years and years later, finally admit to the kids, like, yeah, there was probably something in your closet. Yeah, there was a dead guy walking up and down the hallway. Like, no, I saw him too.
but I didn't want to scare you, even though you were seeing them all the time and you were frightened.
And we kept telling you, no, no, he's not there. Like, sorry for gaslighting you all your life. And you're
Did your parents ever hired anyone to come in the house?
No,
No.
no, absolutely. No, they didn't. And one of the biggest reasons being they were very religious Catholics, very religious Catholics. And of course, you're not supposed to believe in that stuff. You're supposed to believe in the Holy Spirit, but you're not supposed to believe in spirits. And, so I think the only thing they did, and it wasn't by going out and saying, hey, there's stuff going on in our house, was just having a priest come out and bless the house.
there's so many stories that doesn't always fix anything,
Mm-mm.
you know.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
And I'm like, so you bring out a Catholic priest. If the dead person walking around was a Protestant, do you think they care that you brought a Catholic priest out? Probably not. Um,
It's a nice shower as they're sprinkling holy water. Oh, this is a nice shower. Thank you.
that was refreshing. Thanks.
Oh, let's escalate it so they will bring the priest back so we can have more showers.
Now, in working at and with the reformatory, and bringing your like knowledge and what you've grown up with, there's been the discussion, and Maria, in one of Maria's questions, like the difference between a intelligent haunting or something that just keeps replaying. Like, what do you find that happens most, or that you hear of? Because we've talked, and you've been there for many years, and you don't always see everything or see something every time you go. So, what's the most common type of spirit?
The most common, I would say, is probably the intelligent haunting. However, we do have both. Of course, we do have both. And just for those people out there that don't understand what an intelligent and a residual haunting is, an intelligent haunting is when you get responses to your questions. They're actually interacting with you. That's intelligent. They're able to interact with you. A residual haunting is something that is like a videotape that's playing over and over and over. For example, if somebody falls down the steps on November 2nd at 8 o'clock p.m., every November 2nd at 8 o'clock p.m., you can hear the thump, thump, thump. That's residual haunting. It's not ghosts, it's not spirits, it's not anything like that. Now, the types of evidence that people get most is EVPs, which is electronic voice phenomenon. And basically, what that is, for those that don't know what an EVP is you have a recorder and you're asking questions, or you're just sitting there talking, and you might get a response on your recorder that you did not hear. So it's something that you hear once you go back and you listen to your recorder. And we do have quite a few of those. Um, we we don't get too many pictures. Pictures are very hard and aren't always credible because they can be so manipulated so many ways and everything. We have probably about 20,000 pictures, and I would say there's probably only about 20 that we would say is a definite something we can't explain. EVPs, one of the best EVPs we got was before we were actually volunteering there. It was our team. We were there and we broke into smaller groups. And one of the smaller groups, they were the last ones there. And they asked the question, where's the rest of our group? And you get a very raspy, metally voice that says, they already left. And it's like, okay, well, see the good spirits out there. They do help you.
Now, since you've gotten into your healing work and on investigations, do you find that you use any of your healing energy like during the investigation, be it for the people or the place?
I don't use it unless it's for someone. And the reason being, it seems like when I use my energy healing, uh, it seems to cause them to leave. So I don't know if it's because the light's too bright or maybe it's dark. I don't know. Maybe they're like, ah, but yeah, I've tried that before early on when I first started learning my energy healing and everything, and it just seems like they left. We would get no activity whatsoever. However, I do consider myself to specialize in removing attachments.
Okay.
And some of those attachments can be things that people have experienced. I can help them to get through that. But usually attachments are more of a familiar demon type thing. But there are times that people feel that they've gotten attacked because we do get people that are scratched there and things like that. And we've actually witnessed it. And if they're uncomfortable and they feel as if there's something on them, of course, I will do that because it's the right thing to do.
Mhm.
Now, do you want to, since you mentioned demon, do you want to go into a little bit of clarification? Because I'm sure some people are automatically going to go into, the hell in the Bible and the demons and they're after all of us.
Yeah, that's when you get the holy water out and sprinkle crowns.
Right.
Now, when I talk about demons, you do have demons as what people, are familiar with this. And I say familiar, and that's probably confusing because of television and things like that. I mean, you do see those type of demons. Are there demons? I think there's demons, yes. But have I come across one? I've been fortunate enough to say no, I have not come across one. But I'm not looking for them either. So, and I think that's one of the keys too. If you're looking for something like that, guess what? You're probably going to find it, and it's not going to be pleasant. So don't do that. The types of demons that I'm talking about, familiar demons, are demons that haunt us personally. Whether it be our mind, whether it be, our spirit, whether it be our soul, whatever it may be, those are what I call familiar demons. It could be brought on by PTSD or, just, and any, pretty much can it be anything that caused some type of trauma through your life.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be like a mental illness too, or it could be an addiction. There's a variety of different types of familiar demons.
Now, I know not that far, could throw a rock and hit it. From the original OSR is the new prison, not nearly a pretty of a building. I wonder, as you're talking about this comment or this topic and that particular thing of demons, so let's say you have somebody coming in for an investigation and maybe they are battling addictions of their own. Do you find that if they're, that is more likely to be the type of thing that they're going to pick up in the paranormal, especially from the old reformatory and people that may have passed inside that building? Then you've got that prison over there with alive people, but I'm sure there have been people that have died in there that have addiction issues, that have anger issues, mental illness. Do you find that like attracts like, that if you're going on a paranormal investigation, you've got addiction issues, that you're more likely to pick up this attachment demon because they feel familiar?
Comfortable. Yeah, comfortable.
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. Because basically we work on theory with everything. And I think it's a possibility, but I can't say for sure. In a way, with being OSR, now we're talking about energy and stuff, but with OSR, there are spirits there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the spirits pick and choose who they want to really interact with. And I don't know if it would. That would be a good. We should do a trigger object test.
We should. I feel like we should do some experiments down there.
Yeah.
Just for, just for science.
I've known people that have gone in there with PTSD and other trauma type things, and they haven't experienced anything like what you're talking, but who knows?
Yeah, it's just a common teacher that we all have. Also teaches in the hoodoo tradition, and he is in a particular house and sect. And in some of our training, I don't know if you touched on it in your class, Kathy, about cause spirits. And so that's where, so again, for instance, addiction, if you've got somebody that's really trying to break this addiction and they come out of rehab and they mean really well, and then they keep falling and they keep falling and they keep falling. And it's usually like they've picked up a spirit who has a drug addiction who's trying to relive through the living person. And, so I'm like, that's,
It's a possibility.
yeah.
It is. It's definitely a possibility. I think a lot of, and here's the little skeptic side of me, because let me step back. When we do our investigating, we don't go into a place thinking it's haunted. We're going into a place to prove that it's not first. And then when we find out that we can't prove that it's not, we're like, woohoo, Sometimes I think people don't change their ways. I mean, you can go into a program and you can come out and still keep the same friends and
Right.
still hang out at the same locations and keep falling and wonder why. It goes with anything, even any energy healing or anything like that. You have to want it.
Sylvie says, since you touched on the mental health, how are you able to differentiate physical markings left by a paranormal haunting to a person versus someone whose own physical markings they may have done to themselves?
I've never witnessed like where people have come to me with marks. A lot of the marks that we have seen, especially at OSR, they're done in front of somebody. So if they're done in front of somebody, we know that those are not caused by themselves. However, if there isn't a witness and if the scratch is here, you question it. So there's not that proof. Does that make sense? Okay.
I think you could also tell by how old the markings are.
Yeah.
Something that's been stabbed and looks partially healed versus like that night during the thing. And usually if somebody's being scratched or attacked at that moment, and Kathy, let me know if I'm wrong, like they're gonna say something like, ow, this is burning.
Yes.
And usually that's when shirts start getting lifted, sleeves, look,
Yeah. And there's been times that people have said, oh man, something's burning me, just like you said. And they're in winter clothing. They're in layers because it's winter time. So there's no way they could get up and under, an undershirt with a shirt and a sweater and a jacket to be able to do that. So again, you have to look at the logical pieces along with the story itself. Now, I will say that I have received some marks that I know I didn't do myself, not at OSR, but different types of bruises. And the different types of bruises that I'm talking about, it's not like, how you run into something, you got a round bruise. My bruises that I'm talking about actually have it almost looks like a symbol. Like the one looked like it was almost like a paw print. I had the four dots and then one dot down below and then one dot in the middle. And it just came out of nowhere. And I'm like, well, what the heck happened with that? Go away. I don't want you here.
Go away and your friend can't come.
Have you ever had you or maybe someone in your team that an entity had or a spirit or a ghost had followed you home?
My husband and I always joke about that because there was one time we were at the Mansfield Penitentiary, which is in West Virginia. We did an investigation there, and we always say we never brought anything home. However, we feel we brought somebody home that night. We have a clock in our at the time the house we were living in, a clock in our living room that the pendulum never worked. It just never worked. And the only way you could make it work is you had to pull it off the wall and do this to make it work and you could put it back. Well, after Moundsville, we woke up and that pendulum's going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So we think something followed us home, fixed our clock, and left. So we're okay with that. Now, I will tell you about a time that I did feel as if something did come home. Well, I'm not even sure if it was an entity or if it was the evil eye from somebody.
Okay. Yeah.
So I had come back from a trip and I was injured on the trip. And as I was home, I was smelling this really bad smell. And I didn't say anything, but my husband's sitting next to me and he finally says something, "What is that smell?" And I go, "You're smelling it too?" And he goes, "Yeah, I've been smelling it for a couple of days." And he goes, "Oh, you brought something back with you." And all of a sudden it clicked because the witchy side of me and the botanical magic, mountain magic kicked in immediately, and I was like, "Okay, don't ask any questions, just do what I say." And I grabbed my little cauldron and I scooted into the kitchen and I said, "Get me this, get 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 me this, and get me this." And I put it all together and I went to light it, and my husband's like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "You can't light that in here." And I go, "Well, I can't go outside. So it's getting lit in here because this has to be done." And he was like, "Well, when the fire alarm goes off, you talk to the fireman." I'm okay, go, leave. So, he left and to let me do my thing. And I did my thing and I felt very, very comfortable with it. And I poured the salt on top of it, put the lid on, put it away for a couple days until trash day. And I said, "Okay," I said, "we have to take care of this now." And I opened up the lid and it was like cement. You couldn't break it apart. It was solid, and he's like, "Why would it do that?" I go, "Because whatever was here is trapped in that." Because I've never experienced that at all. And he goes, "Well, how are you going to get it out?" I go, "You're going to give me a tool that you don't care that I throw away, and we're going to get it out of here." So that's what we did. We took care of it, and we didn't have any issues with that at all. Now, with that being said, that kind of goes to a different topic a little bit, and that's protection.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even if you do protect yourself, it's not always 100%, but you can always take other means in order to protect you and your home, like I did mine.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did was what I've been taught. So there's all kinds of different ways for protection with things like that. But that was the only time that I kind of questioned that I really brought something home. Because usually I'm just like, "Guys, stay. I don't want you coming home with me. I don't need, unless you're paying rent and you're helping pay all the bills, you guys can't come." They listen, and I'm knocking on wood.
That it keeps happening that way, right?
Right.
I mean, the haunted places I've been, I don't think I've ever even remotely suspected like something was following me home.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a good, and you just mentioned how when you go, you're like, "Nope, you stay here, you can't follow." So, even just those simple boundaries is a good starting place. So, kind of one of Maria's questions I'm going to ask for her. Um, like if somebody is new and getting started, like what are the simple things to get started? Like obviously protection. So what are some easy protection things for people just tiptoeing into the paranormal world?
Well, one of the things is you can go to this wonderful store in North Olmsted and get yourself some crystals. What? I shop there all the time, gotta believe. For example, I have a hematite bracelet that I wear. Hematite is something that's really good for protection. And I have all kinds of other jewelry, bracelets or what have you that I will wear. And I'm usually called to it each day of what I need to wear. Like it's a, I seems like here lately I'm wearing the hematite a whole lot. Um, but usually I get called to whatever protection I may need for the day. The other thing is, and going into haunted locations, intention is the hugest protection that you
Mhm,
can use.
mhm, mhm,
Hugest. And it's also the hugest clearing for anything that may be negative. No matter what you do, you could be throwing, okay, you talk about holy water. If you hop in the shower and it's plain old water and your intention is to cleanse yourself and protect yourself for the day, and you mean it and your intentions there, guess what? You're protected for the day,
Mhm.
because that's the key right there, the intention.
You
No,
know,
I do agree with you with that, because every single time I'm doing a healing or a reading to someone, before I even step onto my first appointment, I'm already at home doing the intention.
Yes. Yeah,
It is big. It is huge. It's your own sacred weapon, basically. Your own sacred tool.
absolutely. I agree with you. And what you're saying about before doing healing sessions and everything, I have a whole ritual. I
Hmm.
have a whole ritual of what I do to set the energy. And what it's backed up by is the intention.
mhm.
But
Hmm.
if some people like to carry crystals, to wear necklaces. I also have a beautiful piece from the same location. Um, Florida water is a good one. Black salt, black salt.
Hmm.
I mean, black salt, for people that don't know what that is, it's you take herbs and things like that, and you put it in a little pot. You could call it a cauldron. You get anything that is heat resistant. Put all the herbs in there that are magical in certain aspects, with some candle wax and a few essential oils, and you burn it, and you give up that intention of protection. And once that's all burned and everything, then you add salt to it and you get well, it's over there, so I'm not going to grab it. But, you're mixing it together and making this really beautiful black salt. And you can take that black salt and put it in a little jar. Or what I like to do is, have you ever seen those bracelets that it's like a watch and it unscrews and you could put little trinkets in it?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Not in a long
Yes.
time. Yes.
yes,
Yes. Yes.
something like that, like a locket, but it's a bracelet. And I
Yeah.
open that up and I put my black salt in there and I close it up and then I'm wearing it on me.
Nice.
Mhm,
Oh, Chair Bear, good question, especially since there's the old prison and the new prison, right?
mhm.
She says, can entities only travel to and between places that existed at their time of passing? Like if they're an old entity, do they recognize the new buildings?
That's a really good question. Very, very good question. And this is my belief on it. I'm not saying that this is the truth. It's just how I feel about it. I think that if they come into a new location, they're probably confused, but it has a familiar feel to it. So it probably still has that energy that it remembers, but I think that they may be confused. Like,
Mhm.
for example, when you remodel a house, what happens? It gets more active.
Mhm.
So with that, I think it's like the confusion of, oh, the wall's gone. Where did the wall go? And stuff like that. So
Mhm.
um, I think they recognize it, but they're confused. And I do think that they can travel back and forth. I do think people can just stop in. They're walking by the street and they're like, what's going on in there? And they wander in and take a look and they're like, oh, yeah, this one's protected. Let's leave.
Right. This one's no fun. Let's go bug the neighbors.
Like leaving your lights on outside. You want to leave all your lights on,
Right.
get your protection, leave all your lights on so that the criminals go to the house next door.
And I think you said you haven't done much energy work necessarily at Mansfield because you noticed like they kind of left, right? But when it comes to the parapsychon, I know that times there's healers as well as readers. Have any of the healers said, gee, I'm trying to do this healing work, and there's just this feeling of something hanging out that's just being nosy or is making this really hard for me? But has anybody reported something like that?
I can't say that for a healer, but I have received that from some psychics. Okay, I've heard that from some psychics. Now, as far as say I'm doing energy work at healing and they're at OSR, if that's what I'm specifically geared into, I I protect my space, my area, so I'm okay. So I personally would not have an issue. I feel as if I can do energy healing anywhere as long as I follow my ritual that I do every single time. Um, I haven't heard from the healers, but the psychics I have. I had one psychic that was down in the West Cell Block, all the way down by the West Showers, and she came up to me and she said, "Kathy, I have this guy that's in the cell right behind me, and he is just bothering me. He doesn't want me to be here. Can you go talk to him and tell him that this is where I am?" And I said, "No." I said, "He doesn't want you there, so he was there first. We're going to move you." So I went down there and I said, "I'm really sorry that we disturbed you." I said, "We're going to go ahead and move her down a couple spots." And we did. And she was fine after that. And then there's another psychic that she said she went into her cell. It sounds funny. She went into her cell to read, and there was a guy in there, and he was kind of like pushing, like, why are you here?" And she was like, I'm only here for the weekend. I'm only going to be here these hours and blah, blah. And she talked to him. And he was okay with that. But at 5 o'clock on Sunday, she says he was tugging at her pant leg. Like, it's 5 o'clock. It's time for you to leave now.
Time's up. Time's up. Skedaddle.
Well, and you know what? I'm gonna step back a little bit. There was one time that I did a healing session at the Bell Mansion. Um, I was in a room that the same psychic that asked about that I had moved. She was there, and she walked into the room where I was going to be setting up, and she goes, "Oh gosh, I feel sorry for whoever's in this room." I'm like, "It's me." So she's like, "Well, there's somebody in here that is not happy. Thank you for letting me know." So I went in and I just talked to him, and I was like, "Hey, listen, this is what's going on. This is why I'm here." And at one time it was a funeral home, and I said, "I know that you work with people, and you always tried to make them feel better and more comfortable and things like that. That's what I'm trying to do too. So I hope you don't mind. I am going to be here, and if you want to help me, you can, as long as it's for the good of the person that is on my table." Everything was fine.
Now, Cindy says that she's a healer and psychic, and every time she's visited Mansfield, she's had issues with a couple of entities. So, and I know she's been upstairs and, downstairs.
Mhm,
I've only ever had my table at ParaPsycon like downstairs in the one wing because of how
mhm,
big we set up and everything. But I try to wander, and just kind of scope out, see the things, say hi to the friends that are all there.
mhm.
But now my hamster wheels are turning, and I'm like, I want to try.
Yeah,
I want to bring the mesa down, and I want to do some things and see if I have, any issues. But you
yeah.
and like I've told you before, like when I've been there, I've not picked up anything. But I am also that person that you go into a house and people are like, "Oh my God, this is happening," and I walk in, things stop, and I'm like, "Well, I want to play too." So that's where I'm like, ooh, another type of experiment to maybe do is like, all right,
Mhm.
Kathy, show me the most active area, and I'm going to go in there by myself, and I want to see what happens. You
I
know,
think we should do that. I
that,
really do.
I mean, I've taken off everything that's protective, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, let's do it. Crickets, and I'm like,
Mhm.
but why?
But that's how I felt when I would bring out my Reiki energy. When I would bring my energy out, thinking bringing energy out is going to draw them in because it's energy. That's when it was, like you said, crickets, nothing, no activity, no sensations, no nothing. So I put my Reiki away and I do have activity. So I don't know. I don't
Huh?
know. Maybe you're just too tight.
or my "don't F with me" is so strong that it
Yeah,
enters the
that too.
room before I do, that, and I'm like, but no, I want you to interact with me. Do you have a question, Maria?
Yeah. And now I do distant healings, and I've had this. This is before I started doing my intention protection ritual. I got interrupted by three different spirits, and I did not know what they wanted. It was so much that I had to stop with the client I was doing a distant healing on, and I said, okay, what is it that you need? What is it that you want? So I ended up doing healing sessions on the spirit. That's
Oh,
what they
wow.
wanted. So I'm wondering, have you ever come across that a spirit needed something, a healing? Maybe they're done, and maybe they're afraid to go and find the light and find the next level. Have you had that? That they have
I
come
have,
to you? Please help me.
I have not. I have not experienced that at all. And I do distance healing too. Actually, that's one of my other specialties. I love, absolutely love doing
I
distance
love that.
healing.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why I like it is because the person is so much more comfortable because they're in their own home.
Mhm.
But in answer to you, no, I've never had a spirit wanting a healing session. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
How does it
It
work
was kind.
out?
It was well. It was once they got what they needed, and I was up till about 3 o'clock so I can, concentrate on my client. They
Hmm.
left. They were happy. They left me alone, and I was able to continue with my healing. I had two other spirits that have come to me. One of them was actually got a hold of a reader, and this person is a healing. I go, which person? The person that's standing behind you? I go, oh, it's a spirit. Okay, that's what's been bothering me. Because all day I could not focus or concentrate, and I did not know who was around me. And I said, you know
Okay.
what? I'm not gonna even bother. Just hang out. I don't care. And someone said, this person needs a healing from you. This spirit. So
Mhm.
I had two other spirits who have come to me and asked for a healing.
That's pretty cool.
I thought
See,
that's I thought that was normal. The fact is
are you
paranormal.
are you psychic too?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
see, I don't consider myself to be a psychic, so maybe that's why I haven't experienced it. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of. I'm intuitive. I'm an intuitive sensitive, I guess is what you want to call. And if I do, if there's things in the future that I need to know about, it's through dreams. Um, but I have noticed my gifts are getting stronger, so I'm kind of hoping I get to that point. That'd be cool.
It's like a muscle to
It is cool. It's a free service for the spirit world, and I don't mind.
well, that's kind of a little bit of part that we can maybe debate before we wrap up for tonight. Um, we were talking about Kathy, you and I, like earlier today, going over questions and talking
Mhm.
points about healing lands, buildings, and spirit. And those who believe they should or can and effectively versus those who believe like no. And you were saying, Kathy, that you don't necessarily do the healing work with the spirit, but not necessarily because I just don't believe it. It's just not in your forte, you were saying.
Right. Basically, now I do believe that the land can be healed, and I do think
Hmm.
the way that Maria's talking as far as spirits being healed, yeah, I think that can be done, and I would be very comfortable with that. But if you're looking for, if somebody is looking to uh, be how do I word this? To be sent to the light or to asking me to help cross them over, I am not comfortable with that at all. Not, and you know what? I don't judge anybody that is comfortable with that and that they can do that and everything. But for me, I'm not comfortable with that, and there's a couple reasons for that. And one of the biggest things, I don't know how to do it properly. and I don't want to mess things up. It's just like when you go into work on somebody. If you don't know what you're doing, you could end up hurting them, not helping them. So I'm not comfortable with it because I don't know enough about it. And the other thing is, I don't think that's my responsibility. Okay. That's not up to me to take care of. Now, I'm not saying, Melissa or Maria, that if you do that you guys, oh, you shouldn't do that. No, if you guys know how to do it and you know how to do it right, then I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. But you take a look. I'm going to use Ohio State Reformatory as a good example here. You've got Joe Schmo coming in that knows nothing about the paranormal, knows nothing about spirits, and thinks he knows everything. And he's going to move along all of these spirits as he comes in, right? So he comes in, and these spirits are approaching him and saying, hey, can you send me the light? I can't seem to see it. Can you send me? And he sends them, not knowing what he's doing, where he's sending them, and if they aren't tricksters and tricking him into doing something that they shouldn't be, as far as that entity shouldn't be moving on yet, because it's not their time. Because again, you take a look at Ohio State Reformatory. You have good and you've got bad. You've got two types of energies there, and they balance each other. If you're moving on all these good people, what's going on? Ooh, the bad are coming in, and then they're doing what they did in life. They're hurting people. They're assaulting people. They're following them home and causing havoc in their house. Okay, and that's because that individual doesn't know what they're doing. That's my opinion. So,
no, and I appreciate your integrity and honesty, and like, I don't know how to do it properly, therefore I'm not going to try. I'm not going to put other people at risk. And I feel like there's a lot of people in this field who claim to know how to do things that they can't.
I agree.
There's a lot of, and I've sent Maria off to some home clearings of families who have had multiple like investigators or people out claiming that they could take care of this house and it just got worse, or, no improvement. And I'm like, yeah, make note of that name. We might be hearing more from their past clients,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's not really a good way to know unless it's really word of mouth, saying like, hey, this person did great, you should call them, versus like, well, don't call that one. So we have a question. Have any of you connected with a spirit's energy and combined it with your healing energy to give a healing to another? Example, deceased grandma wanting to help heal their grandchild.
Yes. Short answer, yes. Because when I do my ritual prior, and even during, I'm speaking to the spirit world to help me and to guide me, to my Reiki guides, to my spirit guides, to archangels, whomever I'm calling in. Now, if you're a Wiccan, I'm certainly not going to be calling in archangels. I'm going to go. I'm going to go to what your belief is and reaching out to them, because the universe works in a way through me that the right people are going to come in and do the things. I will call in ancestors. I will say, if there is a family member here that wants to help with the healing, as long as it is for the good, you are welcome. Otherwise, you need to leave. So, yes, there are times that people have, after the session, they have said, my mother was here. She was holding my feet. It's like, yeah, because it's not me, it's them.
Maria, did you have any questions from what we've talked about?
Well, it's a basic one. I know that we have said demon, entity, ghost, spirit. Could you explain ghost and spirit? Are they the same?
That is a
The terminology
question, and nobody really knows.
Exactly. That's why that was the one thing I said. This is a simple question. It may sound really simple and a little bit clueless, but it's like, what is the difference between a ghost and a spirit? Because people just use the phrase. Yeah, we have done it tonight also.
Yeah, yeah, and I do that too now. My husband and does a few presentations, and he has the definitions of certain words, and he has ghost and he has spirit, and it's according to what you can Google and find, and he always says the same thing. But who really knows that that's what that really means? You know. So I mean, I think they're one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, ghosts, earthbounds, right? Spirits is the overreaching entity, whatever you want to call it, divine masculine, divine. So for me, I make that distinction, but that's for me.
Right.
That's most likely not across the board. Entity is also haunted type of spirits, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I think I used that word tonight too.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's true. It's a personal choice, just like you said, Melissa. And that's how you differentiate it. Me, I'm not at that. I'm not at that level. I'm just kind of like, they're ghosts, spirits, ghosts. But then again, you have spirit guides,
yeah.
Yeah.
and that's a completely different. That's a different realm,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and the word spirit is before it. It's not a ghost guide.
Right.
No.
I think I've only known fictional characters that have ghost guides. Um, one series, like she's literal death and she solves crimes and mysteries. And on her research team is a dead, like 13-year-old, gangster kid who helps collect data for her to solve these cases. And I'm like, I think you're not even real, but the only person that has a ghost guide that I know of. So, like, if any of our friends in the audience have ghost guides that see, hear, talk, like, let us know. I'm curious. I have questions if you do.
Somebody said to me, a ghost is an earthbound spirit, and spirits are crossed over energies. Well, there you go. Same as you.
Mm-hmm. Uh, but it's been an interesting talk, and I think we should really do some of these investigations down there. And I know, like, at one point you were talking about a piece of land that felt particularly angry, and I'm like, I still want to go meet this angry piece of land. Still angry, and be like, "What's wrong, buddy? Like,
Yeah.
what? Why are you so mad? Who ate your Cheerios? Like, what's the matter?" Because I am somebody that I like healing the land. I like healing, the spirits. Then the living also get the benefit off of it. And I think I've even had this debate with Marianne before. Marianne will not force cross anything over that doesn't want to be. Whereas I'm like, you're a perv messing with little kids, little girls in the shower and hanging around this family. Oh, I'm coming for you. You are crossing and you're going to go deal with that, karma, retribution. You need to go because you are a problem down here for, people that don't need to deal with you. And then I will deal with that when I cross over, and be like, well, you were naughty. You over. I'm like, yeah, I did. So, what's my probation? What do I got to do? Like, I admit it. I plead guilty. But that could be a debate maybe for another, like.
Let me ask you a question. It's kind of the topic. You triggered something. Portals.
Mm-hmm.
There's entrance portals and there's exit portals. And I've always been told exit portals you should never mess with because that is the way that they leave. Entrance portals, they say you should close because anything can come through. What's your thoughts on that?
So what I know of portals, I have learned from Marianne. A portal is a door. There's not two, there's not one. They come and go out of both.
Okay.
Anything that comes out of a portal can only hang around about 2 weeks before they have to go back in. And only negative, bad entities come out of the portals. And they're usually on inside walls. They're not on an outside wall. They're not caused by mirrors facing one another. Mirrors are not automatically portals. You hear that a lot. She's like, no, that's creepy, but they're not portals. You know, and in like the 18 years of working with her, like it's been consistent, her information, and having worked with her and gone with her to some places, like that part's been accurate. The only time I've been around a portal and I was kind of aggravated with myself that I didn't even realize that it was in my store. It was in the healing room, and a healer had been doing some heavy duty lifting, working, and it created this portal. I don't think they even realized that this came through, but all of a sudden, like the doors are falling off my jewelry cabinets. Things are constantly breaking and, you know, but it's busy time. And, you know, these cabinets have been around for a while. Like, those screws were loose. Maybe we just sit and tighten them up. But at one point, after a psychotic fair, no less, living, you know, 25 minutes home, I finally get home and I'm sitting there and my alarm goes off and I'm like, what? And I turn on and I'm listening. I can hear talking in the store. So I'm checking other cameras. I can hear talking. I can't see anything. And I'm like, what? And so, you know, I'm texting people that live close by and I'm like, hey, are you there by chance? Are you down the road? Can you just go check? I'm on my way. And they're like, well, I'm going to go in. I'm like, don't go in. If somebody broke in, like,
Right.
Right. I drive all the way back out and I walk in, nothing. But before I get there, like I'm listening, I'm hearing things falling, crashing, like ruckus. And I'm like, live people are in there breaking in, making a mess, stupid kids, right? Here we go. It's going to be a long night. Got to call the cops, got to file reports. Hate it. Nothing. Later on, I have found where one of our local artists, J.D. Arici, he had some artwork on the one wall. And I had not noticed that a framed piece that was on a hook, that was like a big curved hook that you would have to pick it up, tilt it, and pull it off, had came off that hook, slid down the wall, and it broke in the frame. Thankfully, the art was okay. And he's like, that was a cheap frame. Don't worry about it. That's that crashing I had heard in an empty store. And, you know, just all this stuff. And I'm going, what in the world? And, you know, Marianne had called the one day and I could tell she was just like, so how's it going? And I'm like, great. And she's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay. She's like, you know, let's get together. And I'm like, okay. And it wasn't until days later when we're sitting there and she brought up the story. And I'm like, yeah, it's been weird. I don't know. And she's like, well, you got a portal. And I'm like, why didn't you? She's like, you know me, you have to ask. And I'm like, well, that's dumb. We've known one another forever. Tell me. And she's like, I'm gonna be in the area. She's like, I'm gonna come close it for you. And she gave me like the name of the guy. I looked him up. He had killed his wife. He had killed the child. It was executed in Pennsylvania. Like I found all of his information, his execution date. You know, I found all of that, the news article and everything. And he was the one causing the problem in the store. But when she came and closed it, not a problem. But what I have learned from her, it's one entrance and exit, same thing.
Okay.
And it's traumatic instances that will cause a portal. So in a house where there's a lot of fighting, physical abuse, screaming, yelling, that repeated.
That makes sense.
It kind of creates that opening because it like flexes, in my mind, that barrier of our side and their side. And because of that negative energy, that's going to draw those negative type of spirits to come and go. But they can only stay, she says, about 2 weeks before they have to go back over. Couldn't get a clear answer of what happens after that. But they have to at least pop back in for 24 hours before they can pop back out. And all of those portals are connected.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. She has gone out to clear. Spirit refuses to cross over. She's like, well, if you don't go back in or clear, you're trapped and, you know, you're going to have to go out. You can't go back in. and they have popped in, and she has ran into some of them. They're like, I remember you, or I've heard about you. So they're like a little integrated or interconnected set of, but yeah, it's traumatic, dark, hard experiences that will cause one of those to open on an inside wall. But it's one opening for coming and going. So there's a lot of myth about, oh, if you face two mirrors, you create a portal. No, you don't.
Well, do you know, can portals be closed?
Oh yeah. Yeah. She for years taught classes how to close them.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah, I think I know how, but again, it's like I'm not going to attempt it unless I know how.
right.
That's something I would be interested in learning because I've come across a couple of portals at OSR.
Yeah, I'm surprised there aren't a few
More.
I was talking, and I cannot remember her name, but she was there Sunday, and she was wearing her deceased husband's inmate shirt.
Oh yeah, Cheryl.
And she was telling me some stories of how he was wrongly convicted in there, and like some of the stuff that he went through. And just because he was the new guy in the first 24 hours walking out to go to class and just getting his ass beat, and because he defended himself, he got thrown into solitary because he was the new guy. So like, wow. And come to find out, if you're in solitary, it did not count towards your prison time. You like froze your time. So I'm like, well, that stinks. If you're in that building, it should count. But yeah, now I wonder how many portals are in the new prison with the live people.
Oh my God. Can you only imagine? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, I sometimes when I'm pulling up and I'm looking at that gray building, I'm just going, huh, what are those guys going through? Not only like dealing with one another and trying to be like, I'm bigger and badder than you, leave me alone, but like just on a paranormal side of,
oh yeah, there has to be a lot of really dark energy there.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
It would be cool. Well, I'm sure they wouldn't do it because of their job, but like to have like a security guard be like, so tell us what happens there that nobody wants to admit to or talk about, or is there a dead person in the kitchen walking around holding a knife? Like what goes on?
Did they get shanked? There was one time in the attic, we think that somebody got shanked.
Really?
It was on their back, and it was deep, and it was like a couple of slashes. And I'll show you sometime, when I see you, Melissa. It looks like the person got shanked, but I also understand they were provoking. And provoking is, you don't do that. So I didn't say this, but he got what he deserved.
There's a certain TV personality that when I would watch, I would hope they would finally get pushed down some stairs or across the room. So I'm like, why are you roid raging? The spirits in the building, like why?
Right.
Like, yelling. Would you walk into the nursing home and yell at them like that? No. So maybe he would. I don't know. He seems.
Would they walk into your home for the first time and approach me and go, "You're an asshole"? Yeah. What would happen? I'd probably punch them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting field, and I think we run into new questions sometimes, though, the longer we are in it and we're spending time in it. All right. Well, Maria, did you have any final questions for Kathy? We told her we were only going to go an hour. We're a little over.
Well, the only thing is like, since you're an energy worker, just like I am, do you feel there's a difference in the quality of the energy when you step into a paranormal location?
Could you repeat the question? I'm not sure I understood it.
Okay, just like Yeah,
not
do you feel the
necessarily.
energy? The energy is like it could be heavy. I'm
I
not talking
see.
about the smells. I'm not talking about the physical stuff. I'm talking about the emotional. You can feel the heaviness of it. You
Absolutely.
can feel, because sometimes when I walk into a location, I would feel, oh, they had a lot of there was a celebration here, because I feel the energy of the happiness, the celebration. Or
Mhm.
if I go into a place where someone celebrated,
Mhm.
someone's life,
Mhm.
I feel the sadness.
Yes.
So is there a difference? Is it heavier? Is it thick? Is it stifling?
As energy workers, when you first asked, I thought you meant when I'm doing energy work, but
No.
no, now I understand. When I go into a haunted location, if it's active at that time, because just because you go into a haunted location doesn't always mean that it's going to be active. And if it's not active, that energy's not there. So if we're going in, there's been times I have gone into a location and I said, ooh, feels heavy, and almost constricting. And it's like, it's going to be a good night. Isn't that weird? It's going to be a good night. And that's the beginning of the night walking through. And then you go back through and the feeling's completely gone and you get nothing.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there's definitely a different feel. But I did a private home one time and I walked into the house and I stood at the bottom of the steps and I was like, oh, this is kind of scary right here. I feel fear. I feel fear. Well, come to find out that the daughter used to be at the top of the stairs or vice versa, whichever. The daughter would be at the top, the father would be at the bottom, you know what I'm trying to say. And they
Mhm.
would be fighting.
Mm.
That energy was left there. And that's what I was feeling. So yeah, it feels completely different. Completely. Well, here's a good example. I was telling you about this earlier, Melissa. My office at OSR. The executive director came into my office a few weeks ago. Now, since I moved into that, I've, done my cleansing. I put crystals everywhere. I have me in there. A lot of protection stuff, and it feels good, witches chimes on the door, everything. And he came in a couple of weeks ago and he sat down. He goes, oh, this office feels really good. He goes, it never used to feel like this. What did you do? And I'm like, what I do. So there's a really good example of something too. That's in a haunted location.
Mhm.
And he said that it felt heavy and uncomfortable and he didn't like being in there. But once the energy was lifted and cleared, he was comfortable.
Hmm. Now, is he a big believer in the paranormal too, or is he just working in the reformatory because it's a historical site and the preservation?
He's a believer, but doesn't want anything to do with the paranormal because he is a believer.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. So he focuses a lot of his time and energy on the historical side of it, but he doesn't dismiss the paranormal because he has a belief in it. It just makes him feel uncomfortable. So he
Gotcha.
leaves that for us.
Okay. It's
Okay.
always I don't know. I find that it tends to be more of guys who are slower to get on the bandwagon of believing. You
Mhm.
know? So that's why I'm like, okay, where on the fence is he? You know.
No, he's a believer. He is definitely a believer. He has had experiences. And he does believe in protection. I just found out that he believes in all kinds of holistic work and everything like that. I was like, I never knew that about you. I was teasing him.
Nice. Nice.
So I gave him a crystal or rose quartz crystal. I was like, here, because you like this stuff.
Yeah. I will pay you in crystals.
Right.
Maria, that's one of your favorites, Maria. So I know you're grinning in approval. of handing out the rose quartz.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Love the rose quartz.
Mhm.
Now, I'm sure it might be
I'm actually an amethyst person.
okay. Ooh.
I'm that too, but I love
Yeah.
rose quartz and amethyst. Yeah.
No, I'm getting excited for blood prism, but I've wondered because there are so many people going through in a short amount of time in a day, and I wondered what the paranormal activity would be. But would you even notice it? Because there's the haunted house going on. There's so many people. I'm like, all of that energy for those earthbounds to be just soaking up. And, so I'm standing outside in my vendor tent, kind of going, what's going on in there that
I-
isn't a planned attraction, isn't a real jump scare, isn't.
Well, and you think about it, fear is a very strong emotion, a very strong
Mm-hmm.
energy. So I'm sure they are feeding off of that. However, I do know that they don't like blood prison, but I
Oh,
think it's because of all of the noise and the loud sounds and things like that. I have heard that some of the actors have had experiences while they've been acting.
oh,
So you talk to Vic. Well, talk to some of the actors because the actors will tell you.
okay. Yeah, that would be really interesting.
Mhm. Now, my sister and I went through it one year, and she swears when we went through solitary that there was something breathing heavy in her ear, and she was like, "It was not human." She's like, "It was not human. That was
Something else entirely.
yeah, yeah."
Mm-hmm.
So who
Okay.
knows?
Yeah. I haven't gone through blood prison, only not that I'm afraid of haunted houses, but in that fight or fright, I'm a
Hmm.
and so to make sure there aren't police reports and lawsuits filed, I don't go through haunted houses. And then when I found out like there's the touch pass where they can grab you and touch you, and I'm like, oh yeah, nothing good would come of it. And
Nope.
I'm going to stay out here and watch the wardens with them mess with everybody in line. I'm entertained. I'm quite happy. Um, nobody's calling the police on me at this point.
Right.
Well, this has been a fun topic and a fun question. And
It was a good night. Thank you for asking me to be on. I
yeah,
enjoyed it.
I was glad we were able to
Yeah,
catch you because, you're a pretty busy lady.
Yeah, ParaPsycon's over, so it's starting to slow down a little bit, which is good.
Well, you've got a plan next year, ma'am. What are you waiting on? Come on now. Talent to line up. You've got,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, trust me, we've been working on it. It's just that we're not as frantic.
yeah.
Not like in January, February, and March, and April. That's when it's like, okay, everybody, get to the grindstone.
No, you guys do an excellent job, and all of the
Thank you.
volunteers are always friendly and helpful. And I can't say that I've ever had a bad time down there at all. Even working in the blood prison,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
it's one of our favorite ones to go do.
Good. I'm
I'm
glad to hear that.
anxiously like checking email, waiting for Rita to send me my contract for blood prison. She's like, "I'll be sending it." I'm like, when?
Vic and I were talking. He was saying that he had a real nice conversation with you at ParaPsycon and everything. So
Yeah, he does a good job on blood prison.
he
This is a
does.
huge undertaking, and I'm like, hats off to you. I wouldn't touch that.
Nope.
Um,
So,
well, thank you for talking about healing work and the paranormal and, what you've experienced. And thank you again, Kathy and Maria. If you have any last minute tidbits of knowledge, or Kathy, for that matter.
No. I,
I'm all
no.
set. Again, thank you
Yeah.
both. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully you guys can join us next Tuesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for our next episode of the Healer's Corner. We will be on with JD Arici talking about spirit art and the energy work that goes into artwork and how he gets his messages in doing art. So hopefully you can join us. And I think we're actually going to be doing that from the store with a couple of cameras. And I think he's going to actually be doing something live with it too. So that'll be fun to watch.
Yes.
But we hope you can join us next week. Until then, have a great night, and we'll see you next week.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.